Bottom line, all these actions we've been taking are about the truth, this truth. Investing in Ukraine's freedom and security is a small price to pay to punish Russian aggression, to lessen the risk for future conflicts. You know, throughout our history, we've learned that when dictators do not pay the price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and engage in more aggression. They keep moving. And the cost, the threats to America and the world keep rising. We can't let this happen.
President Joe Biden on the cost of allowing Russia to continue its aggression, its war against Ukraine, telling this nation this morning that cost is not cheap. The president asking Congress for another $33 billion in military and humanitarian relief as U.S. officials now project the conflict to stretch for months. The White House also seeking new legal powers to enforce America's sanctions on the Kremlin, proposing the authority to liquidate assets from Russian oligarchs and putting those funds toward the Ukrainian war effort. All of it comes as Ukraine officially files the first criminal charges against Russia in the war. The Wall Street Journal is reporting today that Ukrainian prosecutors investigating war crimes in Bucha named 10 individual Russian soldiers accused of mistreating and taking civilian hostages in the Kyiv suburb. Ukrainian authorities have said that they discovered more than 400 dead civilians in that city after Russian forces retreated late last month. Joining us now, MSNBC international affairs analyst, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, our friend Michael McFaul. I believe you were the first person I heard say on TV, either on this show or another one, I know we all call on you, that it was knowable which unit this was and that you could find out exactly the chain of command for the Russian soldiers responsible for the civilian massacre in Bucha. What do you make of how quickly charges have been brought for war crimes?
I think it's fantastic. I think it sends a very powerful signal to other soldiers, Russian soldiers in Ukraine, when they learn of this, and they will eventually. That will be a deterrent for the horrific things they're doing in other parts of Ukraine. And I am deeply impressed with the speed with which the Ukrainians do everything, by the way, Nicole. Not just this, but I think this is really important what they're doing, and that they're doing it quickly matters as well.
I want to read, just for our viewers, who they are, because we'd also reported that they were awarded by Vladimir Putin, but this is what they face in the rest of the world. All 10 were non-commissioned officers and privates from Russia's 64th Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade, one of the units that took part in the month-long occupation of Bucha. Earlier this month, Putin granted the 64th Motor Rifle Brigade a Guards honorific. In a Friday announcement on its Telegram channel, Russia's Ministry of Defense promoted an officer in the unit, Azerbek Ambarkov, to colonel. So for Russia, it's not just a parallel reality. It's rewarding the most heinous acts of the war. I'm not sure there is a moment that encapsulates their brutality and the reward structure for it more than this.
I agree. I run out of adjectives to describe just how horrible this is. I don't even like the word war anymore, Nicole, because killing children with cruise missiles is not war. But the second piece I think is really important about what you just noted. These people are being rewarded. What happened in Bucha was not some mistake. The whataboutism I sometimes hear from my colleagues on Twitter that, well, we killed these people in Afghanistan, we killed these people in Iraq. Yes, on occasion, U.S. armed forces have killed civilians, but it's been by accident, not on purpose. And we don't reward soldiers when that happens. We investigate those kinds of killings. This is on purpose. Remember, we have talked about this before about Bucha. Putin could have cleaned up Bucha. He could have done that. No, he wanted this to be there as a deterrent, as a way to terrorize Ukrainian people. And that's why he's rewarding these soldiers. And I hope someday they will there will be justice before them through these international channels that the Ukrainians are now using.
Amal Clooney, a human rights lawyer married to George Clooney, tried to get the UN to not look away. I think that can be harder than people might think about a body like the UN. Let me show you her blunt message about Russia's brutality today.
Ukraine is today a slaughterhouse, right in the heart of Europe. I still read news headlines not knowing quite how to process them. Could it be that thousands of children are being forcibly deported to Russia? Could it be that teenage girls are being raped in the street in front of their family and their neighbors? Was a building that had the word children on it really bombed? And are civilians today in Mariupol systematically being tortured and starved to death? Unfortunately, the answer is yes.
You know this better than I do, but I think one of the Ukrainians' concerns and fears is that not only will we look away, but we'll get numb to it. She seemed to do a service to that end in making sure we do not and that the UN does not. What do you think?
One, I agree, very powerful. But two, we need more actions. It's not sufficient just to investigate what's already happened. We need new sanctions. I'm part of a team, a working group of international experts. We just published a big paper last week where one of the things we call for is to label Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. There are 4 countries in the world that the State Department does that now. We think Russia meets the criteria for that. And we lay out many other things. It is not sufficient just to say this is horrific. We now have to act, and we have to punish Russia, Russians, and the entire Russian economy so that they'll begin to think about ending this war.